Excellent, thank you. To him be the glory in Virginia. I did not forget. Looking for a good Bible, someone had mentioned the Passion Bible to me because it was in Aramaic. It's so bride-oriented. So many people are using the Passion Translation with the bride doctrine. I am not familiar with the Passion Translation, but let's look that up a little bit. I can tell you already I don't like it, which, a fellow ought to at least put a little study into it. But I'm not a fan of the modern versions for a number of reasons, but almost always it is, the two main reasons are, one, the underlying text. Did they come from the Textus Receptus? I doubt it, but probably they went from the 27th or the 28th or maybe the 29th version of the constantly edited critical text. I don't trust that text. And two is, they almost always, as To Him Be the Glory mentions here, they almost always come with some theological perspective, rather than we just want to get linguists together who can translate well. And that's what the King James was, even though I'm sure the king had both political and religious motivations for doing it. But he gathered together a group of, 56 scholars or something like that, that honestly, I doubt the world has ever produced that many exquisite linguistic scholars in one room since that time, before or since that time. The other translations, like you take Jerome or you take, Darby, and they did kind of, they were good linguists, no doubt about it. And Darby, I know him better than Jerome. Jerome had a little bit of a Catholic leaning there, a little bit. But Darby was a very good linguist, so I look to him sometimes to see what he has to say. But that's one guy. Why do one guy when I can get 56? If I could put 56 Darbys in the same room, that kind of mitigates over the theological assumptions that are brought into the room and need to be balanced out, need to be undone. So the Passion translations, first time I have heard about it, but we go right here. Encounter the Heart of God. The Passion translation is modern, easy-to-read Bible translation that unlocks the passion of God's heart and expresses his fiery love, merging emotion and life-changing truth. That whole thing right there would say, nah, I don't want it. Let's go through this several times. Let's ignore modern and pretend like, okay, maybe that's a good thing. But I don't really want to ignore it. But easy to read. I don't care. I don't care if it's easy to read. I want accurate. And if I'm not predisposed to do so, but if I was predisposed to make, the Randy White translation, the first thing I would say is I have attempted to, as accurately as linguistically possible, to get this from Hebrew into English, from Greek into English, from Aramaic into English. That's what I would want to do. I don't care if it's easy to read. I want it to be accurate. Bible translation that, see right here, unlocks the passion of God's heart and expresses his fiery love. We've already talked about I'm not all that emotionally driven. And this sounds like an emotionally driven translation. And it sounds like they're going to unlock the passion of God's heart. I say it sounds like that because I read it. So they want to unlock the passion of God's heart. The problem is, if the passion of God's heart is not expressed in the words of Hebrew and Greek, then we don't know what the passion of God's heart is. So I suspect often they're reading the passion into there. I get this a lot of times, and I'll say especially from women, but I suspect it happens sometimes from men too, where someone will come and say, you know, oh, I think something's troubling him. I think he's burdened over something. Oh, I remember a couple of months ago that, Dennis Rosker said something that was untrue about him, and I think he's just burdened by this. I think he's down. I think he's really struggling, and we really need to pray for him. And I'll hear this, and I'm like, gosh, you are so far off. That's not me at all. See, he doesn't even want to admit it. The passion of his heart is burdened right now. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, let's gather around. And I think every pastor gets this a little bit, but every person probably gets this a little bit, because we try to read another person's emotions. I think reading another person's emotions is bankrupt. Don't even try to do it. And even let's say someone's got tears coming out their eyes. I don't know why they're crying. I mean, I hate to sound insensitive here, but I know some people who cry because it's snowing outside and it's so beautiful, and it makes me think of my mother, and and other people are crying because it's snowing and I hate snow, and why are they crying? I don't know why they're crying. That's where their emotions are. That's why they're crying. And, crying, laughing, whatever. So I can't even read emotions. Okay, this is why I'm not a good counselor. I can't even read emotions when, you're crying, you're laughing, you're stoic, whatever. I say quit trying to read emotions. So that's, if we can't do it with people, and I find very few people who can read my emotions. I think it's because I don't have any. And they try to read something that I don't have. And I always feel awkward when they start doing that. I'm like, my emotion is, that's weird. Quit thinking about, what's burdening my heart or whatever. And usually I'm thinking about, I need to finish editing that book. So anyway, you take our inability to read emotions of each other, and then you try to unlock the passion of God's heart and express his fiery love. Just get the words, and don't quit this merging emotion and life-changing truth. No, just give me the words. I don't need you as my therapist. I just need you as the words. There's the translation philosophy that would be interesting to read. Let's look at a verse comparison just a little bit here. Okay, here's the 23rd Psalm. Oh, excuse me. I'm trying to find a nice way to put this, but I can't think of a nice way. I'll just say I almost croaked just reading the first few lines of Psalm 23. The Lord is my best friend. Lord is my best friend and my shepherd. I always have more than enough. Yuck! When I read that, I have the same feeling if I went to a movie with my buddy and he put his arm around me. That's the feeling I get here. The Lord is my best. Oh, help me! Somebody get me out of here! I haven't seen the Passion Translation, but wow. He offers a resting place for me in his luxurious love. His tracks take me to an oasis of peace and... Excuse me. That... I don't know. Would the most emotional of women like that translation? I don't expect it to be a bestseller. Let's just put it that way. I don't expect it to be a bestseller. And furthermore, just looking at this, I'm afraid it doesn't even bring the essence of the passage in. And you would miss the prophecy of that psalm and others. Let's see. I kept reading. I shouldn't have done that. Song of Songs, as we know, Song of Solomon. Chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. Verse 2. Let him smother me with kisses, his spirit kiss divine. So kind are your caresses. I couldn't read it. Thank you, Nancy, who says, I'm very emotional and that makes me want to vomit. I'm not emotional and that makes me want to vomit. So, yeah, that's okay. Here's a Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 5, 3 through 12. That's the, what is it? Beatitudes. What wealth is offered to you? Okay, so blessed is. What wealth is offered to you when you feel your spiritual property. When you feel your spiritual property. There goes into the feelings thing. For there's no charge to enter into the realm of heaven's kingdom. What delight comes to you when you wait upon the Lord, for you'll find what you're longing for. What blessing comes to you when gentleness lives in you. I think probably if the editors are watching this, they're going to say, that gentleness doesn't live in that bald-headed man in Dallas. For you will inherit the earth. How enriched you are when you crave righteousness, for you will be surrounded with fruitfulness. It almost seems to me like satire. Like if you were to get Oprah Winfrey to write a translation and tell her you want it over-the-top emotional, this is what you would come up with. Verse 12, so leap for joy, since your heavenly reward is great. For you are being rejected the same way the prophets were before you. I'll give this one an F. So, in looking for a good Bible, honestly, I would say get a King James, as I say sometimes, get a King James, put your big boy pants on, and learn how to read it. And it won't take that long. If you are totally inept at King James language and you read the Bible for a month, you'll have it down. It'll take you a month to get the cadence, to get the, eth and est and thee and thy, to get that to roll off the tongue. But if you'll do it, you'll get there. Who put this out about the lead translator? Let's see. Brian and Candace Simmons have been described as true pioneers in ministry. Yeah, I think I would describe them that way. Their teaching and spiritual gifts has opened doors into several nations to bring, sounds charismatic, uses Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic manuscripts to express God's fiery heart. I'm trying to see... looks like they had some missionary experience, married for 48 years, so they got to be in their 60s anyway. That they came from a missionary background, and this is not always true, but some who come from a missionary background sometimes do operate off emotions rather than scholarship. And because of that, there's not been much missionary advance in the last 100 years. I think that's true. We should investigate that sometime. Okay, sorry about that. I went over time.